I'm Jon Crawford, currently a pastor at The Table in Indianapolis, but I first came to Exponential in 2015 to be poured into as a young resident at that point. I was going to help a church planting residency, and sort of the classical model, build big, seeker-sensitive services, preview services, that whole thing, which is its own model within a suburban context. And what was starting to bubble up in me was planting in a more urban context in a downtown area, and what does that look like? And everyone I had run into so far had very little to help and give me in that context and the circles that I was running in. And so came to Exponential and just started looking at the tracks, and then I was like, oh, okay, what about this? What about this kind of planting? And I would say that felt like even in that time was some of the first time that bigger voices were starting to say things like, hey, maybe urban planting is a bit different. Maybe it needs different economic models. Maybe it needs different things. And I was like, this is amazing. That's so helpful. And getting connected. And then that's when I attended my first breakout session with Tampa Underground and the work that they were starting to do about how do we become these micro communities in place within neighborhoods, present and embodying a presence there. And it just gave me this hope towards this birth, this dream that was being birthed in me about what it might look like to plant a missional urban context based in neighborhoods in Indianapolis came to life. If you're someone who's curious about planting, what does this look like? And is there anybody out there who's thinking like me, that's trying to do these sorts of things? This is the place to come and meet them. The main sessions are great, don't get me wrong, but those breakouts and that topic that you're like, oh, somebody is doing that. Somebody's talking about operating a small business as a sustainable model. Someone is talking about how do we be in our living rooms and meeting with people. This is the place to meet those folks. This is the place to have that conversation and then get connected into those networks, because it is happening. There are people, or if it's not, there are people that have been wondering the same thing with you. And Exponential is a great place to get connected there. We moved downtown, my wife and I, and our story from there just took off, ended up joining in with other plants, because what we found is there are other people that had also moved to this neighborhood, and why continue to do different things when we can do things together? And here we are now, coming on 5 years later, about what it looks like to be embodied disciples in Indianapolis. It's been great, and it started at Exponential for us.